Illustration rares exploded in price in early 2025. But before I get into this video, I'm actually gifting one subscriber this PSA 8 Umbreon Eevee game stamped promo. Now, if I reply to your comment with this Moonbreon emoji, then well done, this PSA 8 slab is getting sent your way. And hey, if you are new to the channel, welcome aboard. My name's Phil and I cover topics relating to Pokemon collecting and investing. Definitely feel free to subscribe. Now, illustration rares are seemingly going down in price right now, and I think there's a lot of questions relating to why this is happening. Though when you actually see how far they've come down in price, it does get pretty interesting. Here we go. Illustration rare price reduction being pretty significant, dude. Huge shifts for the Pokemon TCG, huge shifts for the Pokemon hobby. I think a lot of people are wondering what is actually going on right now, because I guess some people are a little bit confused because some people are saying, oh man, but I don't want my cards to keep coming down in price. Why would I want that? And the reality is, and I've got to just speak like just generally on like a broad kind of thing, Pokemon cards were just way too inflated at the start of the year. There was just too much naivety entering the hobby. Too many people thinking that Pokemon cards just climb endlessly in value. And I think a lot of people got caught in that whirlwind. And we can kind of see the market now retracing, which is very healthy, okay? Because it shouldn't be a thing that a hobby is so unattainable. The Groudon right here is so important to learn about. You can see 6 months ago, this card was selling for 67 US in December. As you can see, the Groudon went all the way to 110 USD. And right now it's selling for 71 US. You can see gone up 30 bucks, dropped down 30 bucks. What's interesting, if you pull this into the year graph, you can see this Groudon was selling at around $50 in September. And if I could even pull it before that, I do know this card was once a $25 card. So definitely it's still above what it was selling for, but you can see from that high point of 110 US, right now selling for 71. Whether or not this Groudon's gonna continue to come down in price, maybe not as kind of big as it's already dropped, because it still is probably one of the top chase cards from Paradox Rift. I think Paradox Rift in a lot of ways is pretty lackluster. I mean, it does have some cool cards, but in terms of this Groudon, if it was a special illustration rare, I personally would put this Greninja kind of level. I think a lot of people are now wondering what's going to happen. I do wonder for 2026 where these illustration rares are going to go, because don't forget, they're very unique for their era. Same thing when we're looking at the Yveltal illustration rare. I'm on the 6-month graph, and you can just see there, literally just look at that. It looks like a mountain, that graph, dude. It has gone up so much and then just kind of fell down. Super strange, right? You can see this was selling for 16 US. Then it went all the way up to 30 US. That was when this whole illustration rare boom happened, right? But you can see the retrace has been pretty significant, selling for 16 bucks. So you can see it was selling for $16, before the boom, right now selling for 16. And if I pull that on the 3-month graph, you can see pretty consistently going down in price. I think like one thing, you're gonna see this so much, especially if you're new in the hobby, people just get caught in a hype wind. They get caught in a hype train and they almost can't help themselves. Like it's gonna happen, I guarantee you, like in a month or two, there's gonna be something that's trending, something that someone's interested in. Everyone jumps on it. The price goes crazy. Everyone just buys, thinking it's going to be the next thing. And then when everyone forgets about it, it goes down in price. That was kind of like what was happening with illustration rares. We already saw that in 2023 with the Japanese female trainer cards. We saw that with kind of Pokemon 151 singles. Now they're kind of all retraced as well. And of course, you can see with illustration rares as well, the same kind of story. And I think that's why you got to be a little bit careful when dealing with this hobby on how high prices can go. Now, interestingly, the Latios from Surging Sparks, really cool card. You can see selling for 40 US, went up to around 45, currently selling for $23. I think that's a pretty good price, dude. 23 bucks for a really cool illustration rare. I always saw this card at the same level as that Groudon, but you know what? Like I said, that Groudon used to be 25 US. Right now, this Latios is 23 US. It could potentially have that kind of same story. Though in saying that, with this whole illustration rare boom, there may be a chance that illustration rares and art rares as well for the Japanese sets, maybe they won't be that interesting, because we do have Black Bolt White Flare, which is coming up and it's already released for the Japanese version. Maybe because we have such a high influx of illustration rares and special illustration rares and art rares coming out, maybe all these illustration rares will lose a little bit of their appeal. I'm just on White Flare right now, the booster box for the Japanese version. You can see some for 112 US. The English set may be very different to this, but you can see the price has come down for the Japanese sealed. And of course, you can see the Black Bolt booster box as well, selling for 112 US. Right now selling for 97. So you can see for the Japanese booster boxes at the moment, for these in particular, the price has come down a little bit. Now, also, while speaking about Japanese Pokemon products, that does actually bring me to today's video sponsor, which is Bai. Now, if you've never heard of Bai before, Bai is a Japanese proxy shopping service, and it allows users outside of Japan to purchase anything they want from Japan and have it delivered to your door. So for example, on Bai, you can search for something such as Pokemon cards, and you can see the results. Bai allows you to shop on sites such as Mercari Japan, Rakuten, and many others. Now, if you purchase the item actually gets prepared for shipping and it gets delivered to Bai's warehouse, and then it gets packaged and delivered to your door. I mean, with the amount of new awesome Japanese exclusive sets that have been released, such as Black Bolt and White Flare, it does become an awesome tool to purchase Japanese related products, especially for those certain items that are hard to get outside of Japan. Now, the best part is, if you do want to try Bai out, first-time users can get 10% off using the link in the description, so definitely feel free to take advantage of that. A big thank you to Bai for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back into it. Now, moving on to one of the more interesting illustration rares from my perspective is the Eevee from Twilight Masquerade. I'm on the year graph. I just want to take you through this card because Prismatic Evolutions took a lot of the kind of power away from this card, because everyone was like, oh no, we got the Eeveelutions now, we got the evolved forms. Eevee, we don't care about you anymore. But you can see, selling for 44 US in September last year, went all the way up to 104 US. Right now selling for 52 bucks. I mean, that is such a big price reduction for this card. The sealed Twilight Masquerades are quite expensive, but then again, this Eevee doesn't seem to have that kind of bite in it like it used to. And I do think there will come a time where this Eevee recovers, but like I said, because we have so many more illustration rares that are going to come on the market. I mean, we have Black Bolt, White Flare. We know that every Gen 5 Pokemon is getting an illustration rare or a special illustration rare. That is a lot of volume of these cards. You've got so many artworks coming out. Maybe people are just going to say, hey, maybe illustration rares aren't that interesting. Though again, we're going to have to see how it plays out. And of course, you can see the Drowzee from Scarlet and Violet base. Dude, this card was so funny, man, because it was like a $5 card for like most of its lifetime. It was never expensive. I mean, like, look at that. All the way in July of last year. It was, there you go, $7.74. It was such a cheap card, dude. And like, then there was this whole buyout that happened for this Drowzee, and it kind of ballooned, as you can see right there, from $7 all the way up to 63 US. And right now you can see it's kind of come back down to 25 USD, which is much more in line with where the kind of price point for this card is. You got to remember though, the PSA 10 of this card is very, very difficult to acquire. But you know, did it deserve that price point? Most certainly not. And I think that's what's kind of happened now. I think because of this huge kind of massive pull up that we haven't really had such a huge price increase and then such a big price decrease so quickly, okay? Because this has happened so soon, I think this has left a permanent scar on the hobby. I think people are going to be much less bullish to have cards balloon up in price like they did last year. It's funny because I did make a video, you know, earlier this year saying why I'm expecting Pokemon cards to crash. Now, all these reasons combined, I compiled in that video, and it's kind of playing out right now because that's what happened. Like I said, naivety came in the hobby, and we can kind of now see the price reductions happening. You can also see with the Infernape illustration rare, right? You can see it went up all the way to around 18 USD in February this year. Right now selling for $9. I mean, these are pretty significant percentage decreases. A lot of people are realizing now, like, hey, did I just overspend on cards? And if you are one of those people that did, dude, don't stress. It happens to a lot of us. When I kind of really got back into the hobby, I spent so much money on just silly cards. Right now, I'm in a different position. Now, I'm very much more calculated if I buy a Pokemon card because, you know, I do love it for my collecting. I love collecting Pokemon cards, but at the same time, when the prices get so outrageous, I suppose this Infernape isn't in that kind of outrageous category, but I'm talking about like, you know, all of your kind of Prismatic Evolution cards or any of those kind of real top chase cards. When they go to those outrageous levels, you do need to be very picky when you buy a Pokemon card. And of course, you can see the Ninetales from Obsidian Flames reach the high in the market for 34 USD. Right now selling for $14 or $15 right there. I mean, that's a pretty affordable illustration rare. And, you know, a lot of people didn't think that it would go back to this price point because everyone was like, wow, Obsidian Flames, wow, the illustration rare, boom, look what's happened. And right now people are saying, well, maybe it's not really that valuable anymore. I do think illustration rares in PSA 10 are still very desired because illustration rares are very hard to get PSA 10s for. I mean, if you've seen how difficult to grade some of these illustration rares are, that makes it a little bit more attractive, I think, to buyers. But then again, we're going to see how it goes. Now, also, while speaking on some of these cards, if you do love connecting with the Pokemon community, feel free to join my channel's Discord server. You can actually connect with over 9,000 dedicated Pokemon fans. The server invite is in the video's description. And again, you can see the Mesprit illustration rare from Surging Sparks was a $17 card at one point, right now an $8 card. So you can see you can pretty much buy 2 of these Mesprits right now, but in January of this year, you could have only bought 1. So, there is big price reductions for these illustration rares. They really have had a significant pullback in the market. Now, interestingly, some of the Gen 1 Pokemon have also gone through a pretty big price shift. The Squirtle from Stellar Crown, check this one out. High point in the market for 80 USD, which, for an illustration rare, very, very expensive. Right now, selling for 50 bucks. I mean, 30 USD off a price point when it was $80. That's a lot, man. And obviously, Stellar Crown, it's probably one of the more available sets you can get in the Scarlet and Violet era, but still, it is a Gen 1 Pokemon. It is interesting to see how much of a price reduction it's had. When we look at the Squirtle from 151, the high point the Squirtle from 151 got was 57 US, right now selling for 36. So you can see that the Squirtle from Stellar Crown is more desired than the 151 artwork, but I know a lot of people just say, hey, it's 151. Shouldn't 151 be more expensive? Don't forget how much 151 has been opened, Blooming Waters, And of course, you can see the Bulbasaur from Stellar Crown as well, selling for 67 US in January, right now selling for 47. So this one as well has had a pretty big price reduction. But when we're looking at the Bulbasaur from Pokemon 151, you can see had a high point for 50 US in February, right now selling for 30 USD. So you can see the illustration rares are right now really coming down in price. Very interested to see what the future for these hold, because I do think with Black Bolt and White Flare, maybe we're going to have an oversaturation point of illustration rares. So all these previous illustration rares won't seem that interesting anymore, though again, only time will tell. And I think towards the end of the year, it's going to be one of the more interesting times for this hobby because so much has shifted in such a small amount of time. Though illustration rares are interesting as they are such an iconic part of the Scarlet and Violet era and the Scarlet and Violet TCG. In fact, illustration rares were a pivotal change for the TCG. Though Pokemon has gone through so many changes in its short time of being around as a franchise, and one of my favorite aspects of Pokemon is the fact that you can actually trade between generations. For example, you can trade from Gen 3 games to Gen 4 to Gen 5 and so forth. Though have you ever wondered what's actually the longest journey a Pokemon can take? Well, I actually showcase that journey right here. Within this video on my second channel, Philip's Trick Room, I go over that complicated journey and I send a Pokemon from 2002 all the way to the Nintendo Switch 2. If you enjoyed this video, click the video that's currently appearing on screen and I'll see you on that amazing journey.